Chapter 71 Madam, you don't want to either. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Your Highness the Duke, what are you? Madam, I just want to ask, were you seducing me downstairs just now? Don't do this, someone will see it. Baron listened to the panic in Chris's tone, and did not distinguish whether the other party was really so or just pretending. He took a step forward, and the two of them were almost touching each other. Don't worry, madam, they are concentrating on playing games, and... As he spoke, Baron came close to Chris's ear, blew gently, and felt the other person tremble. He continued to say in the woman's ear. I don't want Viscount Butte to know about you seducing me. I didn't, Before Chris could finish her words, Baron had already blocked her lips. In fact, not everyone is suitable for playing the werewolf game. For example, some people have really poor logical reasoning abilities and are prone to making some unbelievable decisions, the kind that can often piss off their accomplices. So after playing a few games for the first time, Sasha, Prince William's girlfriend, felt it was difficult to adapt to the game, so she offered to be the judge. Bonnie, did you bring that? Upon hearing her cousin's question, Bonnie immediately said. It's in my bag. It's in the bedroom upstairs. Can I get it for you? You go ahead and play, I'll just go over and get it. What Chris asked was about the second part of Downton Abbey that Bonnie had just finished. She was already a loyal fan of this novel. She had already read the first part and is now reading it. Rereading the series along with The Independent, it can be said that among the readers of this novel, she is able to urge the manuscript directly from the writer. Today, I specially asked my cousin to bring a part of the written manuscript to take a sneak peek. After Chris left and Baron played a game, his phone vibrated. When he saw the name on the caller ID, he stood up and said he wanted to answer the phone and let others play first. The call was from Daisy. She told Baron that the price of copper in the international futures market suddenly began to fall. London copper trading is conducted during the day, with a total of only 25 minutes of trading time every day. The morning trading time of the London Metal Exchange starts at 11:40, the first trading market begins, and the 8 metals take turns to trade for 5 minutes each. After all 8 metals were traded in sequence at 12:20, the market was closed for 10 minutes, and so on. Therefore, the trading hours of London copper during the day are 12 to 12:05, 12:30 to 12:35, 13:10 to 13:30, 15:30 to 15:35, 16:10-16. 15, however, although the London Metal Exchange has ended trading at this time, there are still other related exchanges around the world that will be trading during trading hours, such as copper prices. The prices reflected in other markets will continue to affect London the next day. Copper trend, therefore, doing this kind of futures trading does not mean that you don't need to pay attention after the London Metal Exchange ends trading. You often need to pay attention to the price trends of other markets around the world, knowing that the price of copper had begun to fall at this time, and the magnitude was not small. Baron breathed a sigh of relief and asked Daisy to continue paying attention. Fortunately, their short position in London copper has been filled up at this time. The drop in copper prices is exactly what Baron expected. It seems that this wave of copper price decline is about to begin. After hanging up the phone, Baron did not return to the living room immediately. Instead, with a thought in his heart, he went upstairs to the bedroom. Don't tear it apart. Before Chris could finish her words, she heard a hissing sound, and she said angrily. Do you really want to wait until someone finds out? Madam, I am very sensible, your skirt will block. Wait, listen to me. Feeling a push from behind, the Viscountess held onto the desk in front of her with her hands. At this time, she had no intention of reading the manuscript of Downton Abbey on the table. She felt a pain, and subconsciously screamed out, and hurriedly he covered his mouth with one hand. You bastard! Baron! Why did it feel like my cousin wasn't very happy just now? After the party was over and the guests were sent away one by one, Bonnie said something strange to Baron. Probably not. Baron said nonchalantly. Maybe after reading your manuscript, I became a little bit involved in the plot. Maybe. After thinking about it, it was not impossible. Bonnie stopped thinking about it and turned to Baron. My dear, are we going back to the manor the day after tomorrow? That's right, don't you happen to have a vacation? I've almost finished handling my recent affairs. We can go back and stay together for 2 days. Very good. Bonnie hugged Baron, kissed him, and said. My cousin will come with us, is it really okay? Of course, didn't I tell you everything? Baby. Baron picked up Bonnie and walked into the bedroom. Wait, honey, I'll take a shower first. How about we come together? In fact, Baron was a little lucky at this time. After just changing his pants, he had already soaked those pants in the water. Now, you shouldn't be able to see the blood on it. How did he know before that Chrissy, the Viscountess, was actually? Baron was a little confused at that time. The other party was the Viscountess. It turns out, no matter how you say it, it's a bit outrageous. Does Mr. Ian but really have any hidden illness? It doesn't look like it. But I have to say that sometimes this kind of psychological stimulation can really affect your performance, but in this case, it may not be a good thing if it lasts too long. But he was in too much of a hurry, and the Viscountess's attitude towards him was not very good afterwards, so he didn't have time to ask. Thinking about it now, Baron only had a vague guess, but he couldn't ask Bonnie for the specific situation. I can only keep it in mind for the time being. The next day, after the London Metal Exchange started trading, once after 12 o'clock, the price of London copper followed the trend of the global market and opened at a low price. During the day's trading, the price of London copper once fell to £13.50 sterling, closing at £1,384. It can be said that compared with the average position price of DS Capital in London copper, it has dropped by a full £100. This scene made Daisy very excited. Boss, sure enough, London copper has also fallen. No wonder she seemed even more excited than before when she was shorting Airgate stock, because the £100 drop in the price of London copper at this time made the profit on their account now exceed £40 million. The profit at this time alone has exceeded the short position on Airgate stock. Judging from the current trend, the drop of £100 is just the beginning. Baron naturally knew that in the future, the price of copper in London would fall below £1,000. Based on this calculation, their profit would be a terrifying figure, but it's not time to celebrate yet. The entire decline will last 4 weeks, which means it will take a month before they can reap the fruits of victory. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 72 The Duke's Selection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In addition to the futures market, Baron also noticed that at the end of May this year, a stock was listed on the Nasdaq stock market. The company's name was Netflix. In fact, Netflix had planned an IPO in 2001 when it had 120 employees. However, the bursting of the internet bubble and the occurrence of the 9.11 incident made the plan bankrupt and had to lay off 1/3 of its employees. Fortunately, DVD players became a popular Christmas gift that year, so Netflix's insanely growing DVD subscription business saved Netflix. However, even if Netflix completes its listing now, it is still just a DVD disc rental service provider with less than 1 million subscribers and a market value of only about $500 million. Of course, Baron knows that Netflix's future growth will be amazing and it will be a good long-term investment target. But in the short term, at least within a year, Netflix is not too big if it is to make short-term money. Good investment object, because Netflix's stock price is currently around $12.50, still down from its IPO price of $15, and the current price is not the lowest price this year. Its stock price will fall later. In Baron's impression, its stock price can fall to about $5 in October. By that time, Baron had much more funds on hand, and it would be a good choice to use part of it to buy Netflix stock as a long-term holding. 2 Rolls-Royces, one behind the other, were driving on the road to Chatsworth Manor. Although her attitude towards Baron in the morning was much less enthusiastic than before and more of a slightly distant politeness, Chris still went to Chatsworth with Baron and the others as she said before. Manor. She is now sitting in the Rolls-Royce at the back with Gabrielle, the eldest daughter of the Kent family. Of course, it doesn't mean that Bonnie doesn't want to sit in the same car with her cousin, but what she can't accept is leaving Gabrielle in the same car with her boyfriend Baron. All threats must be eliminated. Eliminated in the bud, she can only make such a wise choice. It takes about 3 hours to drive from London to Chatsworth Manor. However, the excellent performance of Rolls-Royce can eliminate part of the fatigue of the journey. Coupled with the increasingly beautiful scenery outside the window, it is not too overwhelming. Boring. After arriving at the manor, a bit of excitement could be seen in the eyes of Chrissy and Miss Ella, in addition to the fact that this was their first time here and they were still feeling fresh. Both of them had also read and liked the novel Downton Abbey. As for the prototype of the manor where the story in the novel takes place, what they saw in front of them was they are also looking forward to Chatsworth Manor. In addition to Downton Abbey, the prototype of Darcy Manor in the world-famous Pride and Prejudice is also taken from Chatsworth Manor, so Chatsworth Manor also got the nickname Darcy Manor. I'm afraid that when Downton Abbey becomes more and more popular, Chatsworth Abbey will have another nickname, Downton Abbey, compared with Bonnie. When she first came here, it has to be said that both Chris and Ella, who are accustomed to aristocratic life, are not familiar with the traditional etiquette of the housekeepers and servants in the manor. Be more adaptable. After settling the two guests in person, Baron left Bonnie to show them around the manor, while he himself went to ask butler Sean about the manor during this time. According to your instructions, Your Majesty the Duke, the institution recognized by the Royal Institute of Architects that we hired has provided a preliminary plan for the overall renovation of the manor. We will carry out this plan separately by region to ensure that there is always at least half of the rooms can retain the function of living. Repairing and transforming a historic building like Chatsworth Manor, especially this manor has long been rated as a Grade I listed building, is not an easy task, because first of all, there are everywhere in the manor. Carvings, sculptures and works of art require careful protection, and the materials used also need to meet the most stringent standards. Moreover, the technical personnel carrying out this project need to have considerable professional qualifications. Just to relay the floor heating and other pipeline lines on the entire manor, it is expected that at least more than 200 tons of soil will be dug out. It can be said that this is definitely a big project. I will take a look at the plan, Sean Butler. If possible, after I confirm it, I hope to start construction as soon as possible. I hope that at least 1/3 of the area can be completed before the end of the year. Well, let's get started with 30 rooms ready to be open to the public. For Baron, starting this project immediately is the best option to save time. Fortunately, for a project like this, even if the total budget exceeds £20 million, it does not mean that it needs to be paid in full as soon as the construction starts. Instead, it will be paid in stages, so that there will be no financial burden on him. It caused too much pressure. It can be said that the reason why Baron is now able to use such little funds to carry out overall repairs and transformations of the entire Chatsworth Manor is thanks to his grandmother. Because when Baron's grandmother was alive, she spent more than £32 million in 10 years to renovate the entire manor. His complete renovation and transformation this time, in addition to modernization such as electrification and network addition, the overall renovation of the manor has become much less difficult. It can also be seen from here that such a huge manor is indeed very majestic and luxurious, but the expenses required to maintain it are not something ordinary people can afford. This is why many manors in England are now unable to maintain and can only be handed over to national funds. Even those that still belong to aristocratic families need to obtain maintenance funds by opening the manors to the public and collecting tickets. The other thing is the management of the manor farm. I will meet with the manager of the farm next year. Baron had already discussed these matters with butler Sean on the phone before, including the farm at Chatsworth Manor. The Devonshire family still owns more than 50,000 acres of land across England. Of course, this is far less than the more than 200,000 acres of land in the family's heyday. Most of these lands exist in the form of farms for planting and livestock raising. The workshops attached to these farms will also process the agricultural products and meat produced to a certain extent, but most of them are sold directly as raw materials, mainly supplying surrounding residents and production workshops. Baron knew that later on, the Prince of Wales used the produce from his own manor to create his own brand of organic products, manufacturing hundreds of products in 3 categories, including food, personal care products and gardening tools, and doing very well. Therefore, he is also preparing to follow its lead earlier and use the Devonshire family's production to create his own organic brand and obtain more economic benefits. This was what he planned to discuss with the manager of the farm tomorrow. Baron is planning to directly integrate the entire Devonhill family farm into one company, Devonhill Ecological Agriculture Company. As for the company's brands, the Prince of Wales's product is called Duchy Originals, and his is called Duchy Selected. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 73 Night at the Manor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Miss Ella, how do you feel here? That since they came together, Baron would naturally not neglect the eldest lady of the Kent family. When they had dinner together, Baron asked proactively. It's a great manor. When I read the novel Downton Abbey, I would imagine what it would be like here, but after I actually came here, I felt as if I had really stepped into the novel. It's a real honor to receive such a compliment from a woman who lives in Camden House. The Kent family and some other members of the royal family all live in Kenton Palace, which was once the favorite residence of kings of all generations, including Princess Diana, who also lived there after her divorce from His Royal Highness the Crown Prince during her lifetime. There are many similarities between Camden Palace and Chatsworth, but you don't have as much beautiful natural scenery at Camden Palace. Camden Palace is located in the center of London, just on the Chelsea side, so as far as Ella is concerned, there's nothing wrong with it. Baby, why don't you eat much? Of course, being polite to guests is one thing, and Baron would not neglect his girlfriend. He saw that Bonnie had only eaten a small piece of steak and 2 slices of bread, then stopped, and asked softly, Rode. The food is not to your liking. It tastes very good, dear, but I feel like you have influenced me to like the taste of Chinese food more. And as you know, I am on a diet recently. This time he returned to Chatsworth Manor. Because he only planned to stay for 2 days, Baron did not bring the Chinese chef from London. Bonnie, who often accompanied him to eat Chinese food, seemed to be very interested in the manor. I'm a little uncomfortable with the food. Chinese food? Mr. Baron, do you like that kind of taste? Yes, Miss Ella, but it's not the kind of Chinese food that British people eat every day. I prefer the original way. So your family has hired a Chinese chef? Well, his craftsmanship is very good. If there is a chance. When Baron said this, he heard Bonnie cough hard and glanced at her, but I saw her getting up and saying, Sorry, you guys eat first, I want to go out for a walk. At this time, Ella seemed not to notice anything at all, and said to Baron in a slightly coquettish tone. If I have the chance, I really want to try the Chinese food you mentioned, Mr. Baron. Well, there will be a chance. Baron could tell that during the meal, Bonnie was a little emotional because of Ella's incident. Of course, none of this was important. At night, under his persuasive education, Bonnie finally realized her mistake in tears. Sometimes Baron's trouble lies in this, just like many readers, it is the same, in the process of learning knowledge, if you only consider your own feelings, then the learning process of 3 to 5 minutes or 10 minutes will not make much difference. The ultimate experience is the ultimate integration experience, but often when you're concerned about the other person's feelings and hope that he will also get the ultimate experience, then there will be many ways to this learning process. The key is that Baron is more than that. His learning ability is so strong that he can continue studying without getting tired, often for an hour or 2 or even longer. Such a good character is very important to his classmates. It is a great test. Even a girl like Bonnie, who often works out to stay in shape and is full of energy, can't bear such high-intensity study most of the time, and she will stop crying almost every time. Sometimes Baron also feels that his current mentality is a little uncertain. It seems that he was so willful in his previous life. After reaching the age of 35, he begins to feel a little powerless. He often needs the help of a pill of cod liver oil to have better results. Learning status. It seems that he should be full of joy now, but people never have everything going their way. When they have some advantages, they often bring some minor troubles along with them. Seeing that the girl beside him was sleeping peacefully, Baron got up and took a shower, then walked out of the bedroom in his pajamas. There is a balcony upstairs in the Chatsworth Manor mansion, which faces the back garden. You can see the spectacular 100-meter waterfall at Chatsworth Manor and the mountain peaks beyond. It was already late at night, and the fountain that could be tens or hundreds of meters high was not turned on, but you could still see the gurgling water on the steps of the waterfall under the moonlight. After enjoying the scenery here for some time, Baron heard footsteps behind him. As if he suddenly discovered Baron standing here, the other party stopped. When Baron turned around, he met the other person's eyes. "Madam, are you still awake?" Seeing that it was Baron, Chris subconsciously took a step back, but when she saw Baron's meaningful smile when he looked at her, she raised her head slightly. "I just heard from Bonnie that the scenery here is very good at night, so I came here to take a look." "How come you, His Highness the Duke, came here by yourself?" It can be seen that Chrissy is wearing a silk long skirt at this time, which is quite drapey. The moonlight was shining directly on her body, giving the Viscountess a sense of holiness, and because she raised her head slightly, it also highlighted her huge scale. Seeing this scene, Baron's fire of learning that had just been extinguished after taking a shower started to resurface again. "Didn't Madam come to me specially? After all, that day? Please respect yourself, Your Highness the Duke. Do you want my husband and Bonnie to know the good things you have done?" Feeling the increasingly dangerous atmosphere in the air, Chris turned around and prepared to leave as she spoke. But as soon as she took her first step, Baron grabbed her arm and bumped into his arms. The other party's broad chest and the aura full of male hormones made Chris nervous and her breathing became a little faster. "Ma'am, will you tell them?" Baron was gentle in his arms, and he was close to Chris's ear, which had a certain fragrance. "And I'm also curious, why are you still?" After hearing Baron's words, the Viscountess struggled more and more fiercely, but the next second, her lips were blocked by Baron. Then His Highness the Duke picked her up by the waist and walked towards her bedroom. In March 1296, in order to annex Scotland, King Edward I of England led his army to capture Berwick, Scotland's leading commercial city. The residents of the city rose up to resist, but they were helpless and eventually fell. After the English army captured the two peaks near Berwick, they were not satisfied and continued to advance into the plains and valleys downstream. Scotland was caught in the flames of war, and the people kept shouting, but it was all in vain. The heroic English cannons entered directly into the Valley Pass and reached the key points of Scotland. The battle was extremely fierce. Under such a collision between armies on the battlefield, Scotland was finally conquered by it, shouting the name of the battle commander, and fell. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 74 Traitor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Honey, what are you writing? In the morning, when Bonnie woke up, she found that Baron was no longer around. This was not a surprise to her, because she knew that the young Duke always had the habit of getting up early to exercise. When she finished washing and walked to the study, she saw Baron sitting at the desk writing something, and saw the title on the top of the manuscript paper, The Traitors. Traitor? Is this some new novel or game? After hearing Bonnie's question, Baron put down his pen, stood up and kissed the girl on the face. It can be regarded as a new game similar to Werewolf, or more specifically, it is the planning of a reality show. Reality show? Can I watch it? Honey. When she heard that it was the planning of a reality show, Bonnie immediately became interested. After all, she is engaged in the television industry and is also a host. There are also many reality shows and variety shows on Sky TV. Of course, and I'm ready to listen to your opinion. This reality show called Traitor is not complicated. It selects about 22 contestants and enters the castle. 3 of these people will be selected to become traitors and the others will be loyal. The traitors hide among the loyalists who can gather together every night and choose one loyalist to kill. In the meeting after dinner every day, everyone will vote collectively to select an exiled player by speaking and identifying. the purpose of these people participating in this variety show is to win the final prize of £250,000. During the course of the show, the traitors and loyalists win prizes through daily game tasks. The maximum prize can be accumulated to £25 million. When the time comes, the people left in the castle will vote in the final meeting until they think there are no more traitors among them. If after the final vote, there are no more traitors among the remaining people, they will share the final bonus equally, but if the traitors still exist, then the bonus will go to the traitors. So the most interesting thing about this reality show is the consideration of human nature. Does loyalty exist? Whether it is the camp of traitors or the camp of loyalists, perhaps betrayal will always appear. It's a very interesting idea. After reading these, I want to participate in this show. The whole thing feels a bit like Survivor, no, more like Big Brother. What Bonnie said is correct. Just like the well-known American variety show Big Brother, it gathers many amateur players in a closed place to play games and vote, and those who stay in the end receive bonuses. It's just that the show Traitor has added a werewolf element. This is also what Baron thought of after creating Werewolf, a variety show he watched in his previous life. In other words, whether it is the warm-up of Werewolf or the variety show Traitor, Baron's ultimate goal is to enter the television field. Are you planning to film this reality show? Indeed, judging from your plan, Chatsworth Manor is very suitable for the filming of this reality show. It seems that you are really interested in this reality show, so Baron said. Yes, I have this idea, but it's not easy, isn't it? After all, I have no such experience before. It is one thing to be able to think of a good idea, but it also requires a certain amount of time to present it better. Ability. That's true. In fact, the quality of British variety shows has always been very good, and many of them have been imitated by countries around the world. Programs such as Millionaire and British Idol have been copyrighted by many countries and have a high reputation. Therefore, Bonnie is not unfamiliar with these variety shows, including reality shows. For Baron, if he wants to enter the television industry, funding is actually not a big problem. What he needs to solve is a qualified operations team. This cannot be accomplished entirely through acquisitions, because in this field, his biggest rival, Sky TV, is extremely powerful. If it just acquires a local British team, the final result may still be the same as ITV Digital. Got crushed out. Therefore, in Baron's mind, the top priority is to first cultivate a team that can compete with Sky TV in both creative thinking and operational levels. Achieving this cannot be achieved overnight, but must be achieved through a certain route, including his idea of cultivating the variety show production team through the Traitor program and subsequent variety shows. Then through the TV series production of Downton Abbey, we will train the TV series production team and so on. Step by step, he formed his team, then participated in the negotiations between the BBC and ITV, and finally got his own channel and established his own TV station. All this needs to be done slowly. Now back to variety shows. As Baron said, you have a good idea, but it is not certain whether it will succeed in the end. Just like why do we have to buy the rights to those well-known variety shows? This is not to say that it is just to respect copyright. In fact, there is no clear boundary for the protection of variety show copyright. Even if most of the processes are used for reference, it is difficult to define it as infringement legally, just like the well-known British talent show X Factor, also known as British Idol. In fact, this variety show was once sued by the producer of the previously very popular British program Pop Idol for plagiarism. Is there any plagiarism in British Idol? The producer of this show was indeed a celebrity guest on the previous Pop Idol, and many of the procedures of this show clearly had the shadow of Pop Idol, but in the end the court did not make a final decision on whether it was plagiarism. Later, many variety shows in China were like this. They obviously used references, but they were not afraid of being accused. But even so, many people are still willing to spend money to buy copyright, because what they buy is not only the copyright, but also a detailed user instruction manual. The copyright they bought includes the entire variety show. The program is explained in detail, including how to set the scene, how to appear, like some reality shows, and even what types of resident guests need to choose, certain plot settings, etc., are all explained. the copyright owner will even send someone to help with the recording and provide foolproof teaching. It can be said that buying the copyright is equivalent to completely replicating this successful program. After all, there are many examples that prove that even if you learn from some successful variety shows, you may eventually fail, and the probability is extremely high. Many of these factors are unknown to outsiders. The same is true now when it comes to Baron. If it is just a novel and exquisite idea, it is still unclear whether it will be successful after it is finally formed. To be on the safe side, he is also preparing to completely reproduce the extremely famous British variety show in his previous life, Traitor. This variety show can be said to have won several of the most important TV program awards in Britain that year, and also the copyright was bought by the United States, and their process was completely replicated, and it was a great success. You want to try it, baby? Hearing Baron suddenly say this, Bonnie showed a surprised expression. Yes, you are the only one who has experience in this field around me, so I need your advice on many things. I thought, why don't you join in directly? Didn't you also say before that I hope more autonomy? It can be seen that Bonnie is still very excited about Baron's proposal, but this matter is a bit sudden. She said with some hesitation. But I have no experience in this kind of reality show before, so I'm afraid I won't do well. What does it matter, honey? You have connections in the TV station. I can recruit or directly buy a team with experience in this kind of reality show production. Baron took Bonnie's hand and said softly. At the beginning, you can be the host of this show first. After the first season is completed and you have accumulated experience, you can try the role of producer. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 75 Cooperation or Buyout. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Regarding the matter of participating in his own production team, Baron still gave Bonnie time to think about it, but whether she is willing to join in the end or not, this plan will always move forward. At the beginning, Baron's idea was to produce the variety show Traitor by himself and then cooperate with a certain TV station to broadcast it. Just like the separation of production and broadcasting later implemented by China, that is, TV stations purchase program content from other producers and broadcast it on their own platforms. In fact, it originated in England. In 1982, Britain's Channel 4 was launched. The biggest difference between this government-owned commercial TV station and the BBC and ITV was that all its TV programs came from independent production companies. It ushered in the era of separation of British TV production and broadcasting. In the following more than 10 years, Channel 4's catfish effect continued to heat up. In 1990 and 1996, the government successively promulgated the British Radio and Television Act to control the proportion of outsourced programs, TV station ownership, program copyright, etc. The separation of broadcasting and broadcasting was clearly stipulated, and these laws became the institutional motivation to promote the prosperity of the British television industry. For example, the Radio and Television Act passed in the UK in 1990 stipulated that the proportion of outsourced programs for all TV channels should not be less than 25%. Today, the proportion of outsourced programs for BBC and ITV has reached 50% and 60% respectively. Correspondingly, there are thousands of independent production companies across the country and British TV programs with constant creativity. Therefore, after learning about these situations, Baron's first thought was to set up his own program production company and participate as a content provider for TV stations, and then accumulate experience so that he could enter the field of TV stations. As for the program production team, it is actually not difficult. The most difficult thing is creativity, because after more than 20 years of development and improvement, the separation of British television production and broadcasting has formed a complete industrial chain. In this chain, independent production companies are responsible for creativity and production, TV stations are responsible for procurement, arrangement, broadcasting, and advertising, and model companies are agents for program copyright sales. Each of the three parties performs their own duties and has a clear division of labor. Here, it is almost impossible for a production company to simultaneously act as an agent for program advertising and marketing rights, as is common in China. Most production companies in England only deal with creativity and programming, while advertising is entirely handled by TV stations. This is their philosophy to do what they are good at and to achieve the ultimate in creative research and development and program production in a professional spirit. In the production of programs, in addition to companies that are good at creativity, there are also a large number of small and medium-sized secondary contractors and freelancers in the British television industry who are responsible for specific production matters. Among them, there are those who specialize in camera and lighting, those who specialize in editing, etc. After a creative company gets an order, it usually subcontracts the specific aspects of program production to professional companies. Therefore, in the UK, most TV programs are the result of collective collaboration between many companies and individuals, and there are very few programs that are hosted by one company. The same can be said for Barron's future content production company. Only core members are needed, and other professional work can be outsourced to other secondary contractors or freelancers can be hired temporarily. The backbone of British television production is a large number of freelancers. They include core planners such as production directors, producers, directors, and screenwriters, as well as basic-level jobs such as camera work, sound effects, lighting, props, makeup, and post-production. They are neither affiliated with a television station nor permanent staff of a production company, but are completely free-flowing professional TV people. Usually after an independent production company gets an order from a TV station, the first thing it needs to do is recruit a project team. The first step is to determine important positions such as production director, producer, and director based on the budget and program type, and then they recommend candidates. Trustworthy grassroots employees, such as camera, lighting, sound effects, props, hosts, artists, etc. All the staff work together for the project, and after the project is over, everyone will disband and become free agents again. This is the combination model of British TV people. Freelancers are the norm in the UK. Regardless of whether it is a TV station or an independent production company, the ratio of permanent staff to freelancers hired every year is usually 20 to 80. Many production companies usually only have a few people, but once they get an order, the number of employees will soar to dozens. Every type of work is a circle. Only by working hard to do a better job can freelancers establish a good reputation and gain a foothold in the circle. Therefore, under normal circumstances, Barron does not have to worry about the professionalism of the personnel he hires, because he only needs to ask around in the circle to find staff who can match the qualities he expects. Even if he needs a relatively fixed team, he can still find the most suitable members during this running-in period. However, there is one thing that makes Barron a little hesitant about this method at this time, that is, although the copyright of the final program is still mostly owned by the production company, unless it is specifically stipulated in the contract, however, most of this situation is still a common practice in the industry and has not been stipulated at the legal level, so it is not without disputes. This situation will not be finally legally determined until the Communications Act is enacted next year. Another one is that after Bonnie returned to London and finally agreed to join Barron's program production team, Halo Company registered the copyright for the planning details of the Betrayal variety show that Barron finally wrote, and then after the plan was submitted to ITV, the other party showed a certain interest, but for this kind of reality show that has not been verified by the market before, the prospects are not particularly certain. Therefore, in the end, the other party said that after the program is produced, they will decide whether to adopt it after watching the finished film. Each TV station has its own purchasing editor. It can be said that as senior professionals, these purchasing editors have great power on the one hand. On the other hand, although these people will be more experienced in grasping the market, they will inevitably have their own preferences, often do not necessarily have an overly adventurous and aggressive style of acting. Therefore, after comprehensive consideration and the team's suggestion, Barron decided to adopt another method of cooperation, which is to purchase the broadcast time of the TV station and directly launch his own program content within the corresponding time. Here, Barron's TV station of choice is still ITV, the British independent television station, abbreviated as ITV, although it is also named Independent, it has nothing to do with the independent newspaper company under Barron's name. ITV was officially launched in 1955. It is the earliest commercial TV station in the UK and one of the largest comprehensive TV stations in the UK. It covers the entire UK and is one of the biggest competitors of the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation. The operation of ITV is very interesting. When it was first formed, it was composed of 15 operators, each with its own logo and identity. These subcontracted TV stations all independently produce programs and even filmed TV series. However, so far, only 4 of these 15 operators have been able to maintain independent Taiwan logos and identities. The other 11 operators have merged with Independent Television Limited to become ITV1. The reason why I chose this TV station is because ITV has a very interesting operation method. The ITV network was founded in 1955 and currently consists of 2 companies, ITV Corporation and STV Group. It has 15 regional licenses in 14 regions, 1 in London on weekdays and 1 on weekends, and only 1 in other regions, and 1 a national morning show franchise, but not all companies can always get the franchise. Every once in a while, the Independent Television Management Department will bid for 15 regional franchises. If you successfully bid for the franchise rights of a certain region, you can broadcast programs in that region in the next period of time. In 1990, the UK passed the Broadcasting Act 1990, in addition to establishing the Independent Television Commission to replace the Independent Broadcasting Authority. This bill allows the establishment of a 5th analog television channel, i.e. Channel 5, now owned by Paramount, and stipulates that 1/4 of the programs broadcast by the BBC must as well as being produced by independent television production companies. The tendering process for ITV franchises has also been reformed. The bill stipulates that ITV's franchise rights will be allocated based on potential value, and the ownership of the franchise will be determined through secret bidding. Therefore, every once in a while, through bidding, you can obtain the broadcast time slot of the ITV network. What's interesting is that according to Bonnie's News, Night Television, which is responsible for the 1-hour broadcast time from 22 to 2300 hours on the ITV network, is being investigated by the British Independent Committee for the Supervision of Telephone Information Services Standards due to suspected violations of the program. The reason is that their prize-winning guessing program, in which viewers participated through a hotline, was suspected of cheating by deceiving the audience into calling the hotline and making profits by predetermining the grand prize winner or raising the tariff without authorization. ITV stated that if the program violates the rules, it will be suspended. Then Summit Media has the opportunity to take over the program in this time period, of course, provided that their bid can satisfy ITV. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 76: A Great Victory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So throughout August, Barron's main focus, in addition to promoting the game Werewolf, was more on setting up a program production company. During this period, Bonnie has resigned from Sky TV and joined Summit Media Company as the company's planning director, responsible for the preliminary preparations for the upcoming reality show Renegade. Summit Media was formed from Summit Studio, a small creative studio acquired by Barron. Originally, this studio received some subcontracted work from large independent production companies. After Bonnie's investigation, she found that the reputation of this studio was still very good, so Barron directly acquired it. Fergal Hayden, the original head of the studio, has relatively rich experience in the industry and has temporarily become the manager of Summit Media. It can be said that Summit Media has been very busy during this period of time, because there are many things that need to be done just in the preliminary preparations for the variety show Traitor. The filming location of the program has been determined to be Chatsworth Manor. In the early stage, the installation of high-definition cameras in the rooms prepared for filming in the manor has been started. Friends who have watched the program Big Brother will probably remember that. There are cameras everywhere in the villa, and the footage of the contestants in the manor will need to be collected through these high-definition cameras. After all, if a cameraman is following the filming, in such a confined space, it will be a relatively big test for the player's positioning and ability to ignore the camera. Since amateurs are chosen as guests of the show, this must be considered. And by choosing Chatsworth Manor, if the show becomes popular, the Manor will be able to get some appearances, and Chatsworth will also be able to get a certain amount of rent. Yes, even if they all belong to Baron, Summit Media still needs to pay rent when using Chatsworth Manor for filming. Even Baron himself, who lives in Chatsworth Manor, will pay rent to the trust fund where the manor is located, because the trust fund itself can be tax-free in many aspects, and this is essentially left-hand and right-hand process. You can avoid a lot of taxes. Compared with the selection of guests on the show Traitor, it can be said that the installation of cameras and slight renovations in Chatsworth Manor are relatively simple. No matter how creative a variety show is, what really determines its final effect are the guests participating in it, and Traitor is such a brain-burning program that requires acting skills as well as keen observation and reasoning, so the selection of guests is even more important. Shortly after Baron and the others returned to London, the recruitment revelation was published in The Independent. Whether you want to win a huge prize of £250,000 or want to prove your strength, this reality show is your best choice. We need to have keen observation, or superb acting skills, and the ability to see through people's hearts. Maybe you are among the crowd at this time, but you have extraordinary abilities. That's right, you are the one. Contact us and let everyone see your extraordinary abilities. Recruitment revelations like this were not only published in The Independent, but also through the internet. It can be said that Summit Media spread the news of this program to the public's attention. This can also be regarded as preparation for the upcoming reality show. Hot, after the news was released, it can be said that they received responses from all over the UK. Many people contacted them by phone, email, etc. to sign up. What Bonnie and the others need to do is to select the 22 contestants who will finally participate in the show from these massive applications. These contestants include former police officers, actors, psychology experts, lawyers, and people who have worked for the intelligence service, etc. who have the qualities they need. Their selection not only requires these people to have certain abilities, but also needs to have excellent psychological quality, especially those who are willing to become traitors. Many times, there is probably a huge gap between your own imagination and your performance when you actually face that situation, being secretly scrutinized and probed by everyone around you. Therefore, they need to screen through layers of talent to find people who are truly suitable for this program. It is already the end of August, and nearly a month has passed, and the price of London copper has dropped below £1,000. In other words, this time the investment in shorting London copper is finally coming to an end. According to Baron's request, the Securities Investment Department that Daisy was responsible for bought and closed its positions in London copper since the price fell below £1,000. In the end, DS Capital completed the final closing of the position at an average buying price of £997.5. In this operation, they invested a total of £33 million with a margin ratio of 5%, and finally made a profit of approximately £220 million. It can be said that this ratio is very scary, but such a drop in London copper is also extremely rare. As for capital gains tax, it is something that needs to be considered in April next year. During this period, Baron can still make good use of existing funds and make some arrangements for tax optimization. As for the original principal of £33 million invested this time, Baron did not immediately repay the bank loan, but instead invested again in London copper, because he knows that London copper will not last long below £1,000. When the global economy recovers and demand begins to boom, especially starting from September this year, the United States will continue to put pressure on Iraq. Under the shadow of war, raw material prices will also accelerate. Therefore, he invested these funds in London copper futures again, but this time he went long on the backhand, and in terms of margin ratio, he still used 8% margin more safely to prevent his previous operations from affecting the market. Of course, basically he was a little too cautious. After all, with the amount of trading funds in London copper, his previous short-selling order could be said to be like a drop of ink in a fish tank. It had some influence, but I can't really see it. However, even with these memories of his previous life, Baron still remembers to act with caution when making some financial investments. After all, caution is the key to success. It can be said that this short selling of London copper has had a huge impact on Daisy. In financial investment, it is not too difficult to choose the right direction. Among traders with a little experience, there are many such examples, but it is very difficult to make the right choice every time. It can be said that those who can do this are all so-called legendary traders. Of course, Baron is still far from a legend now, but being able to make the right choice twice in a row is already very surprising, especially when Daisy later reviewed his original short position on Airgate stock. She found that the timing of Baron's decision to open a short position, the amount of funds used and the leverage ratio, and even the final timing of closing the position were all very precise. Therefore, she still admired Baron's vision very much. At first, Baron told her that he was a genius, but Daisy actually didn't take it seriously. Even with the success of her first short-selling Airgate stock, she only slightly changed her view of him. People are always like this. Occasionally, success may be due to strength or luck. But most people tend to regard luck as their own strength. Such people will often lose miserably in the end, because if you succeed with the wrong method, it is more terrible than if you fail with the correct method. If you succeed once, you will easily become path-dependent on your own method, and eventually continue to add more money. It will only lead to failure in the end. Daisy was also suspicious of Baron at the beginning, but this time it was still successful, and DS Capital's record in London copper this time was too dazzling. Therefore, Daisy's view of Baron has changed greatly. Perhaps, this boss really has a keen sense of investment that is different from ordinary people, and he may really be a genius, but that's only possible, at least for now. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 77 Neutrality and Charity Attributes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As for Baron's profits from securities investments, at least Daisy was still the direct handler. She was surprised by this, let alone Yulia, even though Yulia had greatly changed her view of Baron because of his actions after inheriting the family business. Baron made a bet with her that he would earn more than when it came to £50 million. She just regarded it as the arrogance of a young person after having some success. As for the possibility that Baron is an investment genius. In fact, in the memories he got from his predecessor, Baron could feel that in family affairs, as the second son of the Duke's family, his predecessor, not to mention his brother, even Yulia, a member of the family, outsiders are in a more central position than him. After all, the position of manager of the family trust fund can definitely be held by the person most trusted by the family talker. Because in fact, the so-called trust fund is actually a neutral asset, when family assets are put into a trust fund, most taxes and inheritance taxes can be exempted because of the neutral nature of this asset. In theory, the assets in a family trust fund no longer belong to a certain person or family, but are a neutral asset. However, by setting various attributes of the fund managers and trustees, these assets can be made. The assets are simply controlled by the family. To put it bluntly, you have the right to use these assets, but not ownership, but it is an asset for inheritance, and the right to use it is the most important. As for ownership, just like those in power, the position of being able to use power is the most important. This also shows the importance of the position of the manager of the family trust fund, which is why before Baron completes his inheritance and becomes the trustee of the fund, he cannot use the assets of the family trust fund at all unless Yulia cooperates. Reason. In fact, Yulia cannot be regarded as an employee of the Devonshire family, because the ownership of the family fund does not belong to the Devonshire family, at least in theory. That is the case. Of course, this is just theory. The trust fund itself is created by capital for inheritance, and there is an aspect of compromise with the state. But in the final analysis, capital cannot give up control over it, and the so-called neutrality can only. It's just a beautiful lie. Having said that, even Yulia's view of Baron has changed for the better because he was different from her previous impression. But speaking of him being able to earn £50 million in a short period of time through investing in the securities market. How can it be? This is also the reason why Yulia was able to agree to Baron's bet at that time. Do you really think making money through finance is that easy? Which of the previous dukes of the Devonshire family was not more capable than ordinary people? But the 11th Duke of Devonshire struggled for 24 years for inheritance tax of £7 million. The previous generation of Duke, Baron's father, lost more than £25 million in investment. These examples all prove the difficulty of making money through investment, but now, the real scene happened in front of Yulia. After she confirmed the operations of DS Capital, as well as the profits obtained, more than £200 million, it was still lying in the account of this investment company. Woolen cloth. These things are all confirmed. Baron did it, and less than 2 months have passed since their last bet. He didn't even do it in the half a year he mentioned before. So, Ms. Moore, do you remember our bet, that every move Baron makes is elegant, and the smile on his face looks very bright to others, but in Yulia's eyes at this moment, everything was completely different. Don't think that the so-called date is just about having a meal together, in England, or Europe and the United States, under certain circumstances. Agreeing to have dinner together sometimes means that they will naturally go to bed later. Yulia once did not think that the so-called earning £50 million in half a year was something that required her to consider the possibility, so she did not need to care about the specific meaning of this date at all, but now that she really had to fulfill her bet, she had to consider these things. What do you want me to do? Your Highness the Duke. It's really rare for Baron to see Yulia's worried expression. He is enjoying this moment very much. As promised, we will have a romantic date. He specially emphasized the word date. You would think so too, wouldn't you? Ms. Moore. But you already have a girlfriend. Who would eat their prey immediately after catching it? Watching the prey's helpless struggle is probably the most satisfying and enjoyable thing, therefore, Baron still smiled at Yulia's words. Based on your understanding of nobles, it seems that you should not say such words, Ms. Moore. Okay, I will do what I promised, Your Highness the Duke. Seeing Yulia bit her lip and said this with some determination, Baron patted her arm. Believe me, Ms. Moore, that will be a better memory than the one you're looking at right now makes it seem. Now that I finally have money, it can be said that since Baron came to this world, I can finally feel a little more relaxed. Before that, he had many ideas and plans, but due to the shortage of funds, he could only keep thinking of ways to move around and work hard. The first thing to start is the overall renovation plan of Chatsworth Manor. DS Capital donated £20 million to the Chatsworth Manor Charitable Trust for the renovation of the manor. Yes, a total of 3 castles and estates owned by the Devonshire family, including Chatsworth Manor, are owned by the Chatsworth Charitable Trust, which is held by the Family Trust Fund. The advantage of this is that the manor only needs to meet certain conditions for being open to the public, and it can be managed through this charitable trust. It can even accept donations from the public, and maintain access to these manors by charging tickets and venue rental fees. And maintenance of the castle. Although Baron and the others now need to pay rent according to regulations even if they live in it, this does not change the fact that the manor is actually controlled by the family, and another advantage is that DS Capital's donation to the Chatsworth Manor Charitable Trust, even if it is actually a left-hand act, can still be tax-deducted by virtue of the charitable donation. Just ask you whether it is 6 or not. In this overall renovation of Chatsworth Manor, according to Baron's previous communication with Butler Sean, work will begin with about 30 rooms that were originally open to the public. In addition to the rooms where Baron and the others live daily, on the premises, about 40 additional rooms will be left for the filming of the upcoming Betrayal program. After the public rooms have been repaired and remodeled, the reality show Betrayal has basically been filmed. The rooms they used will be repaired and remodeled next. The last ones will be Baron and repairs and improvements to the areas where servants live daily. The entire process will take at least 1 to 2 years to complete. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 78 Portal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the office of the independent newspaper company, when they faced Baron's company manager Bob and editor-in-chief Whitney again, it was obvious that the smiles on their faces were more genuine. After all, although both of them accepted the three axes proposed by Baron to reform the Independent, they still had some respect for the new boss, but now it seems that, if nothing else, at least the first two items proposed by Baron at the time, the Downton Abbey novel and the increase in small pages in the Independent, have boosted newspaper sales, from the initial sales volume of about 150,000 copies of the Independent. Now, the sales volume has exceeded 200,000 copies, and the effect is still very significant, especially from the recent sales situation. The small page The Independent, which has an increasing share of the market share, is obviously better in sales. Therefore, in the next time, they are ready to stop printing the original large page The Independent and change all newspapers to small page newspapers. It can be said that the current £2 million paid to them by the former owner INM Group is almost all used on this. It can be said that a person's prestige must be gradually strengthened through continuous success. Now that Baron is in the newspaper office, its weight is completely different from when he first took over the newspaper office. Therefore, both manager Bob and editor-in-chief Whitney began to pay attention to Baron's proposal to establish the newspaper's official website, recruit editors for the electronic version of the Independent, and publish the electronic version of the newspaper. Stand up, in the newspaper building, they dedicated half a floor to accommodate the editors and website construction and management personnel of the newspaper's official website and electronic version. Your Highness the Duke, this is the online editorial department of our newspaper. This is the editor of the online version, Mr. Dason Jolio. The other one is Khalid Revere, the technical director of our official website. He graduated at Cambridge University. After hearing the introduction from newspaper manager Bob, Baron's eyes fell on Khalid. He was quite surprised to be able to recruit a Cambridge University graduate to be the technical director of the newspaper's official website. The official website of the Independent newspaper has been online for 2 weeks. Baron has visited it before, and it basically meets his original requirements, and there are some small surprises. What surprises him is that the official website of Independent newspaper has a very simple interface, very user-friendly navigation bar and other settings, and the content is mainly pictures. It also has a discussion area. For some news reports on the official website, users can leave messages to discuss and express their own opinions. Although this has become very common later, at this time, it can be regarded as a quite innovative idea. After shaking hands with the two men, Baron said, "Gentlemen, I am very satisfied with your work. As we all know, the era of the Internet has arrived, especially for young people. The Internet is very attractive. Our independent newspaper industry cannot always stick to paper newspapers and not be enterprising, but should embrace the Internet to attract more young readers and young users. If you have any novel ideas, you must speak up. It is okay for manager Bob, them, or me. Anything that can make the independent newspaper industry catch up. I am willing to support all attempts, such as adding comments after news reports so that users can speak freely, which is a very good attempt." Now the official website of the Independent makes Baron look like a portal. He said to the website's technical director Khalid, "I think our official website can add more content, not only news, but also other content that users like, such as entertainment, cars, games, and even recipes. We can slowly open up sections to let them you can find content that interests you and communicate with it. In this case, I'm afraid we need to add more editors, and then the official website will need too many staff." After hearing Baron's words, the newspaper manager Bob said a little embarrassed, "Mr. Bob, I'm not saying that these are things that need to be implemented immediately. We can listen to the voices of users and what content they are interested in, and we can gradually add those sections. As for personnel, it is not a problem. Baron will enter the Internet industry sooner or later. The current official website of the independent newspaper can be regarded as an attempt. Even if he pays a little more money for this, it is acceptable." He said to Bob, "Didn't you once complain to me that the advertisements in newspapers are decreasing year by year? What should be seen is that the total amount of advertisements placed in paper newspapers is indeed decreasing. The reason is that we have found more advertising platforms, including the Internet. According to survey data, the amount of advertising placed on the Internet is increasing very quickly. So if our official website has good content and attracts the attention of users, it can become a profit growth point for the newspaper. In addition, Baron had already considered the issue of newspaper staff. After leaving the online editorial department and returning to the office, he brought editor-in-chief Whitney over and discussed this issue with manager Bob. "Mr. Bob, you should have understood what I meant just now. We need to embrace new technologies. Therefore, in the future, I will not just position the independent newspaper industry as a newspaper. I hope that through transformation, we will become a comprehensive media company." Seeing the puzzled expressions on both of them, he explained. "To put it more clearly, we will be a producer of content, not just limited to paper newspapers. We can deliver our content to users through various platforms, including newspapers, the internet, and even in the future. Mobile phones can be a way for users to receive our high-quality content." In response, Baron is preparing to gradually change the publishing process and staffing of independent newspapers, implementing a strategy he calls the New Newsroom Plan. The so-called new editorial department corresponds to the publishing process of the independent at this time. At present, the independent newspaper industry mainly focuses on the distribution of paper newspapers, so staffing is all based on the distribution of paper newspapers. For example, there are more than 60 night editors in the independent newspaper industry at this time, just to finalize the edition in time every day and publish the content of the next day's newspaper. But Baron's new editorial plan will focus the newspaper on comprehensive content. The Independent's positioning is a newspaper for elites and more in-depth reports and comments. These only need to be selected. The newspaper's most elite team is dedicated to serving this purpose, but it doesn't require that many people. As for other editors, they will be trained so that they can work for both newspapers and websites to enrich content. In addition, the newspaper will also increase talents in interaction, video, audio and icon production. In fact, this new newsroom plan was the strategy adopted by the Financial Times a few years later. Through such changes, this newspaper became one of the most successful in the transformation of the global newspaper industry. Now Baron is putting it to use in the transformation of the Independent. In addition, it is our other newspaper, the Sunday Independent. I would like to talk to you about whether it is necessary for this newspaper to continue to exist. If Bob and Whitney could accept what Baron just said, then his words surprised them. "Do you want to shut down the Sunday Independent?" "Your Royal Highness, but this newspaper is still very popular among users. This newspaper is too bloated, gentlemen, and I don't mean actually shutting it down, but making some changes, like making it a free paper and not just publishing it once a week, but become an evening paper. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much." Chapter 79 Free Evening News. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Sunday Independent is the Sunday edition of the Independent. It can be said that almost all major national newspapers in Britain at this time had their corresponding Sunday edition newspapers. The first to do this was the Times. In the 1980s, the newspaper pioneered a Sunday edition, and other newspapers later followed suit. But now, these Sunday edition newspapers, in order to cater to different readerships, publish different content sections to catch the attention of children, businessmen, and fashion lovers. In the end, the content of the newspapers expands like a hot air balloon and is filled to the brim. Famous special issues and magazines. At the beginning, readers will feel as if they have picked up something as heavy as a newborn baby from the newspaper office, but more than half of the content is thrown away without reading. But the idea worked, and soon all weekend newspapers became even more wasteful. Last year, The Guardian's weekend edition grew by 60%, making it almost as heavy as a monthly magazine. A well-done special issue can really grab the attention of this group of people. Observer Food Monthly and Observer Sports Monthly increased sales of weekend newspapers by 6%. However, some research results of the U.S. newspaper market show that one of the reasons why young readers do not read newspapers is that they are deeply concerned about environmental issues. They believe that such heavy newspapers waste too much paper. Barron's idea is to suspend the publication of the increasingly large Sunday Independent and turn this newspaper into a free evening paper. The price of The Independent can be said to be relatively high among newspapers of the same type, but we need to prove that we are worth the price with quality and depth. In contrast, we also need newspapers with sufficient circulation, to ensure that we cover the readership range, so running another free evening newspaper is a good choice. Barron's opinion is agreed by others, including Whitney, but there are also difficulties, Whitney said. But Your Highness the Duke, if we run another evening newspaper and distribute it for free, then there will be problems both in terms of editing staff and funding. I understand your concerns, Mr. Editor-in-Chief, but this is not without solutions. In terms of personnel, in fact, as a free newspaper, we only need this newspaper to pass the time for readers while waiting in the subway or other places. Therefore, in terms of content, there is no need to be as sophisticated as The Independent. We have rich content from the official website and some novel reports from online editors. These can be directly put into this free evening newspaper. Of course, in order to avoid affecting the image of The Independent in the minds of readers, we need to give this evening paper another name, such as London Evening News. Seeing his suggestion, both Bob and Whitney agreed, and Barron continued. As for funding, you can rest assured that in addition to the £5 million that I&M Group compensates us, independent newspapers will also receive a considerable amount of funds to improve these plans. It is enough, and once the circulation of the evening news increases, even if it can reach more than 500,000 copies, the subsequent advertising expenses will be enough for us to make huge profits. Barron has no doubt that publishing a free evening paper would be profitable, because until more than 10 years later, when the traditional newspaper market was generally declining, several free newspapers in the UK bucked the trend and became popular and prospered, becoming a highlight. The most typical one is the London Evening Standard. They were originally the only paid evening newspaper in London. Because they had no competitors, they were doing well before. But later, United Newspaper Group and News Corporation successively launched two evening newspapers, London Nut and London News, to compete for the evening newspaper market. Affected by this, the circulation of the London Evening Standard continued to decline. By 2009, it only had 250,000 copies. It suffered an annual loss of £10 million and was on the verge of bankruptcy. United Newspaper Group regarded this as a burden and sold 75.1% of the shares of the Evening Standard to Alexander Lebedev, a Russian billionaire and former KGB member of the Soviet Union, for a symbolic price of £1. Well, that's that guy later. I also bought the independent newspaper for £1. After that, Lebedev, the new owner of the London Evening Standard, turned the newspaper into a free newspaper and once again dominated the London Evening Standard market. After the transformation, the circulation of the London Evening Standard continued to grow from the initial 600,000 copies, and later stabilized at around 900,000 copies, and gradually turned a profit. From January to September 2015, the operating income of the London Evening Standard reached £71.3 million, a year-on-year increase of 13%. The pre-tax profit reached £3.4 million, a threefold increase year-on-year. The annual salary of the newspaper's senior executives, it has also increased from £200,000 to £410,000. It is precisely because of the huge potential of the free market that later the Financial Times and the Daily Mirror also launched their own free tabloids and distributed them in specific markets. Why are free newspapers so successful in Britain? Later media experts believed that the main reasons were as follows. First, there was no mobile signal in the London Underground, and this vacuum also left more room for newspapers to survive. Second, free is an important factor, and no money is spent. It can be read immediately, which greatly reduces people's reading costs. Third, the positioning is accurate. Both the Metro and the London Evening Standard position themselves as fast food newspapers. Although the two newspapers are free, they are well designed and have fresh layouts. Rich in content, it can be regarded as a delicious spiritual fast food for urban white-collar workers on their way to and from get-off work. Therefore, Barron's decision was also made after considering the future development of the British newspaper industry. He himself was preparing to vigorously develop the official website of The Independent, but you must know that in this era, the Internet is still PC-based. It is the absolute main force and has access to the Internet. Among the general public, there may be only 1 in 10. Therefore, putting some of the more interesting novel content of their online version directly on the free evening newspaper still has a huge impact. Audience, this can be regarded as making the best use of everything. Moreover, free newspapers really have a huge money source and can guarantee huge circulation. The slightly larger free evening newspaper has a circulation of more than 500,000 copies, which is very easy. After all, it is free. Therefore, those messages reach a wider range, and it is easier to ensure Barron's influence. The Independent occupies the elite class, London Evening News occupies the mass class, and the Internet occupies the future. This is Barron's plan for independent newspapers in the media industry. As for what Barron said just now, that the independent newspaper industry will receive a large sum of money, this is what he is going to talk to the two of them next. This involves Barron's real estate plan in London. In addition to the layout of the renovation of King's Cross, Barron is also preparing to build 2 towers in London. One is the Cavendish Hotel, which was originally located in Soho. At the location of that hotel, he planned to knock down the old building and build the first building. Later, a second building will be built on the site of the independent newspaper building in Canary Wharf. The specific plan is for DS Asset Management, a subsidiary of DS Capital, to acquire the land of the Cavendish Hotel and then build the Cavendish Tower there. After the Cavendish Hotel Group obtains funds, it can use it to accelerate development, and then rent some of the floors in the Cavendish building after it is completed to reopen the Cavendish, Soho, Hotel. After the Cavendish building is completed, the independent newspapers will temporarily relocate to it. Then DS Asset Management acquired the independent newspaper building and built a second building on the original site, the Devonshire Media Building. Independent newspapers can use these funds to develop themselves. All properties, which are held by DS Asset Management, including Cavendish Hotel Group and independent newspapers, have access to capital to develop themselves. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 80 Dating. You are listening at novelfold.audio. I have to say, you were stunning tonight, Ms. Moore. But the date you arranged tonight is quite surprising. Barron usually saw Yulia in professional attire, but today she rarely wore a long skirt, which made him feel bright, especially when the two of them were standing on the shore. The wind blew by, blowing the hair on her temples, and a burst of fragrance hit her face. Yes, for this date, Barron took Yulia to a yacht club on the Thames River. The two of them were standing on the dock, with a graceful white yacht in front of them. It just so happens that I have a rare opportunity to relax, so Ms. Moore, don't you think it would be a rare and pleasant time to sail the yacht together and enjoy the night views on both sides of the Taiwan Strait? If it's like you said, you just want to enjoy the night view. Also, Your Highness, can you drive a yacht? At first, Yulia thought that Barron had rented the yacht and took the two of them on the Thames River. But when she got on the yacht and found that there were only 2 of them on the entire yacht, she couldn't help but ask. Barron does not know how to drive a yacht. Of course, this is talking about his predecessor, but in his previous life, he participated in many yacht parties, and during those times, he also learned to drive a yacht, so there was no problem for him today. Why, if you're worried, it's still too late to regret it. Although Barron said this, Yulia saw that he sat in front of the cockpit very skillfully and started to drive the yacht, and she knew that he really knew how to drive. The yacht Barron rented was just a medium-sized yacht. At this time, he also thought of the super yacht Eclipse, the Russian rich man Abramovich who will buy the Chelsea football team next year. That is the real palace on the sea. That is to say, his current net worth is still too low. If he buys such a medium-sized yacht, he can afford it, but it is not very interesting. One day in the future, he secretly thought that he would also buy one. A very impressive super yacht. Don't you know how to drive? Ms. Moore, driving a yacht is actually easier than that. Do you want me to teach you? That's no need. Anyway, even if I learn how to do it, I can't afford it. Hearing her words, Barron smiled. Don't be so unsure. I can guarantee that as long as you help me manage the family fund, you will definitely be able to afford it in the future. At least there will be no problem with such a yacht, or I can give you one by then. Are you really so confident in the future of the family foundation? Your Highness the Duke. Of course. Have you forgotten what I told you? I am a genius. Seeing the confident expression on Baron's face when he said this, Yulia's beautiful eyes turned from him to the lights on the shore. If she thought the other person was too arrogant when she heard him say this for the first time, now, she really felt that the heir to the Devonhill family was very different from what she remembered before. He was able to achieve what he is now. It can be said that at least she has a slight sense of agreement with Baron's words at this time. I know that your investment company donated £20 million to Chatsworth Manor, and also formed Devonhill Ecological Agriculture Company, so next. Ms. Moore. Baron interrupted her. We are on a date today, so we won't talk about work. If you want to know about these things, you can talk about them tomorrow. Baron parked the yacht in a wide area of the river and took Yulia to the living room of the yacht, where today's dinner was already laid out. At least it's not cold yet, so please enjoy your meal, Ms. Moore. Baron opened the cover on the dishes and showed a satisfied expression. He pushed back the chair on one side and said to Yulia. Thanks. So for this wonderful night, I specially prepared this bottle of red wine. I don't want you to get drunk and drive later, Your Highness. Don't worry, there are no traffic police on the Thames. Thought it was a cool night in London at the end of August, especially after having dinner together, when Baron and Yulia sat on chairs at the stern of the boat and quietly watched the night. Ms. Moore, I'm a little curious. As far as I know, you came to the family trust fund after graduation. Did you have any relationship experience before? Yulia drank half of a bottle of red wine, but it seemed that her drinking capacity was really good, not least because she had the blood of a fighting nation flowing in her body, but at this time, under the moonlight, it could still be seen that there was a little more confusion in her eyes than the usual calmness. What? Are you interested in this? Your Highness the Duke. Today we are on a date, and I usually see you more like a workaholic, so it's not too surprising that I'm curious about this. Maybe it was because of drinking, or maybe it was just because of the atmosphere tonight. If at normal times, Yulia would have refused to answer Baron's question, but at this time, she looked up at the night sky and said lightly. Of course I have had my first moments of love. After all, I'm not as weird as you think. So it was during college. Yulia tucked her wind-blown hair behind her ears and said with a hint of reminiscence. It may not be a complete love, but I was very tempted at the time. It can be said to be a secret love. There was a senior student at that time who was very talented. At least at that time, I always looked up to him. What happened next? No confession. No. Speaking of this, Yulia's expression was a little strange. She hesitated for a moment and continued. It should be said that on Valentine's Day that year, I was ready to confess my love and bought chocolates until I saw him hugging another boy. This reversal happened so quickly that Baron almost couldn't hold back his laughter. Well, that's very British indeed. Only this section. Well, if you don't count that thing you know. Baron knew that what she was talking about was the mutual affection between him and his brother that ended in nothing. It feels a little cold, Your Highness, shall we go back now? Seeing her standing up, Baron also stood up. The next second, he pulled Yulia into his arms, and then, after a long kiss that was a little rough at first, but gradually became better, Baron let go of Yulia. So, this is your first kiss? I can refuse to answer. Baron smiled and shook his head. From her awkwardness just now, he already knew the answer. Let's go back, Ms. Moore. To be honest, his words still surprised Yulia, because she had already made certain preparations when she agreed to his date tonight. Just when she felt a sense of loss inexplicably and was surprised by this feeling, Baron seemed to see through her thoughts and turned to her and said. I said, today is just a date, Ms. Moore, there are some things that I won't get by betting. Looking at Baron's back walking towards the cab, Yulia suddenly felt that she seemed to have never really known the heir to the Duke from the beginning to the end. the data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much.